In this session, I want to discuss conversion-based advertising. This is a slightly more technical lesson. It's a little more advanced and something that you shouldn't be starting when you just start off with Facebook advertising. As I've mentioned earlier, start with traffic-based advertising. But once you get the handle of it, you can come back and view this lesson a couple of months down the line when you're ready for it. Essentially, you must migrate from traffic-based advertising to conversion-based advertising because it's more effective, the costs are lower, and it is the type of advertising that intermediate and advanced Facebook advertisers use. I have used both traffic-based and conversion, and I get much better responses from conversion-based advertising. The only slight problem is that it's a little technical. If you have a web developer working with you, then or even a social media expert, then they will know about the Facebook pixel which is required to be created before you can do conversion based advertising. But if you're on your own, no fear, I'm going to show you exactly how this is done because I didn't have any web developer when I started, and I started without any technical knowledge. I learned and I applied, and I'll show you what I did. So without further ado, let's go and create an ad in today's session. So we go back again into this area here, which says create an ad. And like I mentioned earlier, if you watch this lesson a couple of months down the line, it's possible that Facebook may have changed the position of where you can create your ad, but there will always be a link or a button on the page where you can create an ad. They will make it easy for you to create an ad because that's the only way they can earn a revenue. So let's go ahead and click create an advert, and it's starting to prepare my account. Let's remove this. All right, so these are the three categories of ads that you can create, and I'd mentioned that this is the one that you should start off with first, traffic based advertising. But today we're going to look at conversion based advertising because this is the right kind of advertising that you want to create. This means that you're telling Facebook, hey Facebook, go and find me people who are most likely to carry out an activity on my website where they convert into a prospect or convert into a lead. The traffic that Facebook will get you here when you go down this path are people who will, for example, sign up for your newsletter or who will register for your webinar. So that's the kind of traffic that you want, rather than people here who will just click from the Facebook ad to your site and then not really do anything on your site. So let's go ahead and click conversions. Scrolling down, you can give it whatever name you want. I'm just going to leave it this way, but you need to set up a tag, a name for your campaign which makes sense for you. Let's go set up the account. Change this to, let's go back. And now you are in this area here, which is advert set. Okay, now you need to verify a pixel. The fact is that, when I did the live version of our lesson, we had already created a pixel. Creating a pixel is really important, but you need to verify it too. So there are two stages to it: creating a pixel and verifying it. Creating a pixel is very simple. You just press a button and your pixel is created. But I'm going to go back. So in case you've forgotten, what is a pixel, where do I find my pixel, etc. We'll do that first, and then we will come to verify a pixel. So this is the first stage. The fact is that you cannot proceed ahead and do the rest, audience selection, placements, etc. None of this will really make any sense unless you fill up and tackle this part first. So here, let's go to, you see these three little lines. Now in developer terminology, it's called the hamburger. Yeah, so you click Ads Manager, and once you click Ads Manager, you may not see pixel here. I use pixels pretty often, that's why you see here. So these are the tools that you use pretty often. They land up here. Come to all tools, it will open up, and under assets, you will see pixels. Now let me give you the background to a pixel. So pixel is a little bit of code that Facebook will first generate for your account, and then it will ask you to embed that code on every page of your site. or every page of your webinar, so that it can track what people are doing when they come to your site. If you ask Facebook to send you traffic of the type who are likely to convert or do an activity on your site, then Facebook has to prove that that activity actually happened. And the only way they can do it is if they have code in the before and after pages. Before the activity, after the activity. Before the registration, after the registration. So when a person goes from the registration page to the page after they have registered, which is also called the thank you page, Facebook is able to determine that yes, one conversion happened. And the only way they can do it is through the pixel. So I'm going to click this. Let's click on pixel. All right, so I have a pixel which is alive and kicking. There's a lot of activity happening on my pixel. But when you start for the first time, all of this will be pretty much blank, right? And you will not see anything here at all. So I am going to show you how to set up your pixel. So let's click this. Now the first step, okay, let me just go back and tell you what I did. You come to your page and look for a button. When you're setting it up for the first time, look for a button which says setup. Now, if you are using a platform like Wix or WooCommerce, Shopify, all of them will have a place or a method by which you can install the Facebook pixel. The Facebook pixel is so important for everybody that these closed platforms, now all of these Shopify, WooCommerce, Wix are all closed primarily because actually WooCommerce is not closed. The others are closed because you can't make too many changes to them. So going back, the Facebook pixel is so important for all of them and they must perform well on their sites that they give you step-by-step methods to embed the Facebook pixel in their platform. But let's assume that you have a WordPress site or an open platform. In that case, you copy and paste the code. So I'm going to click this. Now, there are essentially two steps in copy pasting the code. You don't have to create any code. Your Facebook pixel is always created for you. You just click once, which says create Facebook pixel. That's done for you. The manual work is installing the Facebook pixel. The pixel has two parts to it. One is called the base code, all right, which is this part, and the other is called the event code. The base code, which is this part, is the code which goes on all pages of your site so that Facebook is able to track events on your site. But which kind of event you want to track is in the second part, and we'll get to it in a minute. So you come here. Now you have to install this in what is called the header code of your website. So if you know what that means, that's great. If you have a web developer, they will know what it means. But you have to find a way by which you can install this. So you just click this and it's copied to your clipboard and you have to paste it into your header. If you're using a WordPress platform to build your site, there are lots of very good free plugins which make it super easy to install the Facebook pixel. All you have to do is go to the plugins area and search for Facebook pixel installer, and you'll find a lot of free and premium plugins. Pick up a good one which seems to be popular, install it in your WordPress site, and then they'll give you instructions on how to copy this code, the base code, which into the header of your site as well as the event code. So step one is basically copying this, then you go to next. Okay, once you have copied it, what you have to do, so I'll just go back here for a second. Let's assume that you have copied this into your header of your website. The next is you got to install the event code. Now what do I mean by an event code? Let's assume that you want to track people who search for various things on your website. So if you have an e-commerce site and with a lot of SKUs and a lot of products, and you want Facebook to track what people search for, then you would add this code on the search page. The other is if you want to track people who view content, then you copy this code, add to cart. copy this code. So for example, for me, since I do webinar registrations, what's important is basically complete registration and people who make a purchase. So I have this event code copied into my webinar registration pages, and I have this code copied into my sales pages where I actually make a sales conversion. So these are the two codes that I use. Depending on your website and what you're doing, you would copy one of them into the page, or maybe two of them. If you have a cart, if you want to track initiating a checkout, adding a payment info. So all these are different kinds of codes you can add to different pages on your site so that you can track a conversion, and you can have different kinds of conversions happening. So these are the two parts, and basically this is it. Now, if you have a web developer, and once you've done all of that, you can also email instructions to your web developer saying, hey, you know what? This is my Facebook pixel ID. This is my pixel base code, and these are the event codes for conversion. I want you to set it up on my site and also check the pixel status. So you can email all of this to anybody that you want who has access to your site so that they can do it for you. Now let's assume that that is done. Let's assume that you have installed the pixel on your site. How do you know the pixel is working? And that's really where we are at this stage. In the live class, we had installed the pixel, but we don't know whether it's working or not because the pixel hasn't fired for the first time. So you have to verify your pixel. Okay. Now to verify your pixel, there is something called a pixel helper. And we discussed that, which is basically, okay, let's start with this first. You see this little gray thing, it's called the Facebook pixel helper. If you come to a page on the website, any page, not yours, but any page, any e-commerce store, etc. If you come here and you see that this is gray. So, okay, firstly, where did I get this from? I got this from the, you just type in, let me show it to you. Facebook pixel helper, add enter. And this extension, it's a Chrome extension. This extension is in the Chrome Web Store. So all you have to do is go there. And you must do this if you're using the Facebook pixel. It's very helpful. And say add to Chrome. Now in my case, I already have it. That's why it's saying it's already added to Chrome. What it does is it just looks at whether that page which has opened up in the Chrome browser has a pixel or not. So you can see whether your page has a pixel or not. So let's take an example. Let's go to Flipkart and keep an eye on this. There, from gray it is turned blue, and you can see this one here, which means that there's one Facebook pixel, and if you open it, one pixel found on flipkart.com, you can find some details here, etc. And you know that they have a Facebook pixel, which means that they are tracking you when you come to their site. Let's take a look at another example. Keep an eye on this. All right, so these guys are not tracking you. So the Facebook pixel helper remained gray. So this is very helpful. I'd encourage you to install it in your Chrome browser once you have added it in. And once you've done that, you need to come here and click verify pixel to ensure that the pixel is firing. If the pixel fires, it instantly on your site, this will turn blue and you will have that, one here. So once this gray turns blue, you know that the pixel is accurately installed on your website. Once you do that, you have to select a conversion event. What does this mean? This means that once you've installed the event code, now let me go back and reiterate what I mean by that. So go back to setup. This, once you, not the base code, but once you have set up your event code, you will have different kinds of events that Facebook can monitor as well as send you traffic for. So Facebook is saying, look, for your advertising, do you want me to send you traffic for people who are most likely to complete a registration, or send traffic for people most likely to buy your product or most likely to initiate a checkout? What kind of people do you want me to send you? Now, intuitively, you may say that, look, I mean, obviously, I want people who are most likely to buy my product, but I would not recommend that initially. Initially, you want people who are most likely to complete a registration. You should only trigger purchase as the event code if you're likely to get at least 15 purchases a week. Okay, Facebook needs that much of data to go out and get more people like those 15 people who have bought your product. So if you have one or two purchases a week, do not activate purchases. I have also done the same. For example, I started off by activating complete registration. So what I did was I went to Facebook and said, Facebook, so I have a couple of activities here. I would say add to basket or search or view content. So these are the different kinds of events that I have created. The reason this is red is because I'm not using them, and this is also a test account, and the pixel hasn't been verified. So you select one of them. So for example, let's say you say search. So you want to get people who are most likely to come to your site and search for content. Let's assume you have verified your pixel. Okay, the rest is exactly the same as how you would create your traffic campaign. You create your audience, you look at the demographics, you do your detailed targeting, you decide, in terms of placement. I've always said, look at clicking this radio button, edit placement, and you should only be on Facebook. In terms of being only on Facebook news feeds, then determine your budget, start date, end date, ensure that you have an end date also. You can decide whether you want a daily budget or a lifetime budget. And once you do that, you come into creating an ad, and you can actually create the creative part of creating the ad. The difference, like I mentioned, between the traffic conversion and this is essentially two-step. One is in creating your Facebook pixel. I'll leave some links in the lesson also on further understanding of a Facebook pixel, how it works. It's a very revolutionary piece of code, and all pay-per-click marketing works on the basis of a pixel. So Facebook has its pixel, Google has its own pixel, which is a very different set of code. But without a pixel, they're not able to determine whether a conversion happened or not. So step one is creating a pixel, and step two is essentially looking at the kind of conversion that you want. So what kind of conversion am I looking at? These are the two things which are very different, which you won't find in a traffic-based ad campaign. All right, now I've finished this part of the Facebook pixel, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments box, and I'll be happy to answer your questions online or offline. And I will leave some links for further reading on the Facebook pixel. But now I want to get into a section which is important for all of us, and that is essentially the tools. What is this section? We had covered this in the live class, and I want to leave this in the recording also. We're looking at tools. So what are these? How are they effective? Which ones should I be using if you're just starting off? Now, audience insights is critical when you start planning your campaign. Okay, when you're planning a campaign, it's very important. So let me just go ahead and click it, and while it loads, when you're planning your campaign, it's very important for you to be able to figure out, more about your audience. How do you do that? Of course, you do it by primary research, by talking to them and all of that. But you may want to figure out how do they behave on Facebook, and that's where the audience insight tab is very, very effective. So I'm going to click so it says choose an audience to start. Let me just shut these down first so that they're not distracting. Right. So let me first click everyone on Facebook. Why am I not clicking these? Because I'm trying to figure out my entire universe, which I will define in a moment. How do they behave on Facebook? So when you come here, let me change United States to, let's assume I'm looking at India. Okay. The moment you click India, you see that in terms of demographic breakup, all right, This is how it's split. 77% are men and 23% are women. But this is for all users on Facebook, and this is how they stack up when you look at it from the perspective of by age and then by gender. Now we obviously want to go far more defined, because you're creating a campaign and you don't create a campaign at an all India level. So let's assume that I'm looking at just say 3 cities: New Delhi, Bangalore, and Mumbai, for argument's sake. Now let's take a look at, you'll see that the demographic graphs have started changing. The light graph at the back is all of Facebook, and the dark graphs is your defined audience, how they are split by age and by gender. So let's assume that we want to sharpen this and we want to look at audience which is basically from 25 to 35. And you can see, it started changing even more. Although you're at all gender, you can see that, in these 3 cities, if this is your age bracket, then this is how it is represented. Okay, because you've selected 25 to 35. So it's, or let me change it to 34. And the reason I'm doing that is because Facebook's default age bar is 25 to 34. So I've kept 25 to 34, and voila, this is how it looks. Now, importantly, what kind of interest do I want them to have? For the sake of an example, let's assume that they're interested in handbags. All right. And maybe shoes. And let's leave it at that. So, you can play around with all the parameters that you want, but you're starting to get a sense of who they are. So if you want that kind of audience, this is how it's split up by men and women. And we look at in terms of, you can figure out how many of them are single, how many are married, how many have just a college degree, how many are have a postgraduate degree. What are the job titles of these people? So if I look at it in terms of, the job titles of people who are in that age bracket, you come back and you can see what kind of pages they like. And you can see if any of your competitors are mentioned in the pages, because you know that if your target audience likes a page by a competitor, then you can figure out what are they doing right and take inspiration. Remember, not copying, but take inspiration from them. So these are the pages that your competitors like. Okay. And you can then look at where are they located. Now I've already, selected these 3 cities. So, that's obviously here. The top languages, you can figure that out. Now, in terms of activity, this is important. For this demographic, you can see how many posts they like on a regular basis, ads that they click, how many of them access Facebook via a mobile only. If it's high, so typically, if it's above 80%, then it's important to have an ad which is very well optimized for a mobile environment. And I can see here that in these 3 cities, desktop and mobile is quite high, and desktop only is very, very low at 1%. So it's important when you create your ad to see how the ad is previewed on mobile separately from desktop, because not too many people are going to see it only on a desktop. You can see what kind of phones they have, etc. So this gives you a snapshot of the kind of audience that you are getting an insight into. You can spend a whole day here, and I suggest you do that when you're planning your ad campaign, so that you get maximum insights about your audience and what they're up to. Creative Hub is a new one. So let's click that and see what the Creative Hub is about. Okay, this is basically where you can explore ad formats and create a mock-up to share with coworkers and clients. You can see, for example, I always recommend starting your advertising campaigns with image-based ads, and you can see what your ad will look like, etc. So you can create a mock-up, and this is great to have a full feel of what an ad would look like. So I encourage you to also look into the Creative Hub. Then in terms of create and manage, when you start out, all of this is overwhelming, but just start in the ads manager. And this is what I've been using in all our classes to create ads, to create the ad sets, etc. And once you sort of become more proficient in it, move to the Power Editor very quickly, because the Power Editor, as the name suggests, is a more powerful version for editing, copying, and using the Facebook ad platform. It's much more feature rich, but I haven't got into it because it has a lot of bells and whistles that you don't require when you're starting out initially. So in this column, the ads manager is important, and the rest you can look at at your convenience. In terms of measuring and reporting, what I tend to do is I go to my ads manager and look at the reports from there rather than coming here and looking for reports. But what I do like is these two tabs. One is creating custom conversions, which is basically conversions beyond the events that Facebook has mentioned there. So Facebook has already given you about 6 or 7 events that you can create your conversion around. But if you want to go beyond that, you would click custom conversions. Again, I'm not going into it because you don't need to know that right now, but you can always explore how to set up a custom conversion later on. I find analytics useful. So if I click analytics and come to the get ahead fast pixel, it will throw up a lot of ways of slicing the data, and I can look at a lot of stuff. We could spend a whole day on the analytics behind a Facebook page, depending on what you want to do, including interesting stuff like, how do you look at a funnel, and, from leads to warmed up leads to sales, what is my funnel looking like? So in one snapshot, I'm able to get a lot of insights out of that. Audiences, I'm going to dive into in just a minute, because we'll spend a part of our time on audiences now. Images. This is your library of all the images that you have used in your advertising in the past. So that's all kept for you here in case you want to ever go back and use those images. Everything is lying for you here, and I think that's great. It's a great way of just curating your library. This is your pixel, which I showed you about. The rest I sort of don't even bother and get into because it doesn't impact my online Facebook advertising. And these are settings regarding your account as well as your payment settings. Now, the important one that I want to talk to you about in today's session is audiences. Audiences is very important because it has a huge impact on the cost per lead that you have. And there are different types of audiences. So when you start out, you will have what is called a saved audience, which is an audience that you have created. So it's an audience where you come here and you say, let's, for example, I want to create an audience in India. I mean, you can go down to a city, you can go down to a state, you can go down to even a geographical location. You define the age, the gender, the language. You do detailed targeting by demographics, etc. So that kind of audience is called a saved audience. Okay, you're saving a small section of Facebook's entire universe depending on the parameters that you have selected, and you're saving it. So this audience, for example, let's look at this. So the details, as you can see, 450,000 people living in a particular set of cities and towns in North India, in the age bracket of 20 to 40. So you can see that that's how the saved audience looks like. Now, beyond a saved audience, there's something called a custom audience. Okay. Now, what happens in a custom audience is that you can upload your email list. Okay, your email list can be uploaded to Facebook, and Facebook will scrub away the names, etc. It will look at the email addresses. It will identify these people on Facebook, and it will create a small universe of that, which you can use to put ads in front of those people. So for example, if you have an email list of prospects who came to your website but haven't bought yet, and you have that email list, you can upload it onto Facebook, and Facebook will then show your specific ad only to those people. So a specific creative, a specific ad campaign can be pitched only to them. Now, this is very, very powerful because what it's doing is, one is the rates are a lot lower. So the rates for saved audience are the highest. The rates for custom audiences are lower. And it's very sharp audience because these people at some point of time have interacted with you earlier. Next is you have something called a lookalike. A lookalike is a mirror of your custom audience. So what I've done here is I've told Facebook, go out into your database and pull out 1% of your database, which is a lookalike, a mirror in terms of their usage patterns on Facebook, which is a mirror of the custom audience that I gave you. I gave you a custom audience of 1200 leads or 1200 people. Now go back to your database and pull up 1% of people like my custom audience, and therefore you have what is called a lookalike audience. Because it's 1% of the entire universe on Facebook in India, yeah, my lookalike audience is 2.2 million. This is far better audience in terms of the richness and quality of demographics than the saved audience. Because why? Because these people will mirror people who are already on my email list. So your aim should be to start with a saved audience, develop an email list, and then push that email list and create a lookalike audience, and then start interacting only with your lookalike audience. This may take you a couple of months, but this is something that you should definitely do. The other kind of custom audience, which makes a lot of sense, is retargeting. Now, you may have come across a situation, I'm sure you would have, where you go to a site, you don't buy that particular product, and then you go, you click away from the site, you go to other sites, but a Facebook ad featuring products or services from that website keeps following you for a couple of days. So that is retargeting. The way retargeting works is that when you visit that site, and let's call it site X drops a certain amount of code into your browser, and then Facebook's pixel starts tracking you, and it for 180 days. And depending on the duration of the ad campaign the advertiser has set up, ads from that advertiser or from that website will start following you over a period of time. Now, I'm giving you an overall concept of retargeting, but I'm not going into the details of it at the moment, because retargeting is something you would do a couple of months down the line, and I'll have more details and links about retargeting in the course area. But what you need to know at the moment is you will always start with saved audiences. The next thing is create a custom audience of your email list, like I have done. Start at the same time once you start your email, once you start your Facebook advertising, set up your registrant retargeting. Now, the reason why I say set it up, even though you will not use it for a while, is because it takes time to mature. What do I mean by that? Retargeting happens for people who come to your site and then do not buy and move away. When you first set out with Facebook advertising, you won't have too much traffic on your site, and you won't have too many people who will come to your site and bounce away, because not too many people are coming to your site in the first place. So it's good to set up the code and forget about it, and let the code continue populating the retargeting audience over a 180-day period. If you set it up when you're absolutely ready for retargeting, you won't have a universe in the first place of people who have come to your site and bounced away. So right from the get-go, it's good to set up a retargeting audience. And how do you set up a retargeting audience? I will do in a separate lesson. This is advanced stuff and something that you should not concern yourself with. When you're setting out, just concern yourself with getting the best saved audiences for your business, ensuring your rates are the lowest, and then upgrading or moving up to developing custom audiences and lookalike audiences. So this really wraps up the lesson for today. It's a complex lesson and it's ahead of what you need to know right now. So, but this lesson will always be with you for a long period of time, and you can come back and refer to it. But I've exposed you to certain concepts: the Facebook pixel, conversion-based advertising, and then we've looked at all the tools that are available and at your disposal, which you should explore, even though you may not be using all of them. Remember that you can't break anything. You can look around, explore, and if something goes wrong, you can go back and change it. So you can't break anything. Go out and explore all the tools here. And then we did a slightly more detailed look at audiences, because audiences are very important to the overall aspect of Facebook marketing.